Also for privacy, you can also just maybe, rename yourself and take off your last name, for example, if you feel more comfortable with that.
Yeah, but the recording can't follow multiple windows, and because we have a very large group, it's not going to show everyone, even if we're in gallery view.
Yeah.
So there will still be a good large element of privacy for the people on this call, and it's just those who are sharing in the full group that will get recorded.
Okay. Here we are. Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Hello and welcome. So this is the launch party of the Coincidence Project. And if you're just joining, we invite you to be on mute, and we'll have some times when we're all interacting, and we'll invite you to come off mute, but it helps us to not have other background noise. The Coincidence Project is a global effort, as you'll see from the chat, that we're coming from all over the world. If you haven't posted yet in the chat where you're joining us from today, please post your location so you can scroll through the chat and see what a diverse group of folks we have, and welcome to you all. We began working together 2 years ago. Bernard Beitman, who's the author of Meaningful Coincidences, he'll be speaking next. He had the idea to create an initiative to bring together people from around the world that are interested in coincidences, synchronicities, and serendipities. And he's been studying it for 2 decades and more, experiencing it and living it for many more decades than that, as he'll tell you. And so we began to invite people that he'd interviewed on his podcast, Connecting with Coincidence, that's been around since 2016. And we had a group that we call Coincidence Ambassadors, and began meeting every month. We've met for more than 2 years in a row now. We decided to assemble ourselves as a board and formally get recognized as a nonprofit. We're based in Virginia in the United States, although only Bernie and myself are based in Virginia. Everyone else is based in other countries or in other parts of the US. And we have started also a public group called the Coincidence Cafe. We started the invitations with sort of word of mouth, direct invitations from the Coincidence Ambassadors with people that they knew were eager to discuss coincidence, synchronicity, and serendipity. And now with the launch of our website, which many of you may have seen, thecoincidenceproject.net, with the launch of that website, we're opening up the Coincidence Cafe to all those who'd like to attend. Today is one of our regular dates that we hold the Coincidence Cafe. So it's held on the 3rd Saturday. For us in the US, it's Saturday. For a few of you on other continents, it might already be another day. But for us, it's a Saturday, 3rd Saturday at 11 a.m., the same starting time. And of course, that's many different hours for all of us across time zones. And we meet for an hour and a half. We always have myself as a standing co-host, and then 2 co-hosts generally each month who come and help us explore different topics, different questions. They share a little bit about their own knowledge or perspective or expertise, and then guide the group through some breakouts where we can go into smaller groups and share our own experiences or answer questions or explore various reflections that we might do during cafe. So we try to mix it up, the format of how we explore our experiences and advance our own understanding, perhaps inspiring new coincidences to occur. So we want to reflect backwards, but we also hope that the Coincidence Project is planting many seeds that enable more meaningful coincidences to unfold in the present moment and going forward. Our vision is to illuminate the invisible currents that connect and unify us. We hope that meaningful coincidences can help us more deeply understand our interconnected relationship to one another, to nature, to all beings. And by seeing our interconnected nature come together more closely to work on addressing great problems that face the earth and humans and other species on the earth at this time. So we hope that this can be a launch pad to addressing some of the urgent crises of our times. But we start just with our own experience where we are. So with coincidence. We wanted to share a couple of examples of coincidence stories. And so we asked a couple of our board members who've had wonderful, interesting coincidence stories happen to share a few stories with us. So Catherine Windsor is my colleague on the board. She's helping me today as tech host, for which I am immensely grateful. And Catherine is invited to share the first story. So Catherine, take it away.
Okay, hello everyone. So I am an executive coach. I am based in Colorado. And one day I was driving high in the Colorado mountains, and I was listening to an audiobook. I was listening to that book to help me figure out kind of how do I attract more of a certain type of clients that I particularly enjoy working with. And so I am listening to the author in that moment say, visualize the kind of person that you would love to work with, that you would be so excited to work with. And immediately I had this image of a guy called Doug, who is a CEO of a company and who I've worked with before, and but never as his coach. So I was like, oh, this, like, I would love to work with a Doug and similar like him. And so I am going over the mountain pass high up and come on down back into cell phone reception. And suddenly the phone rings because I'm in cell phone reception again. And I answer and hear, hi, Catherine, it's Doug. We haven't spoken in a long time. Would you be my coach? And I was just blown away by that. Like, wow. And the point for me was like, the clearer we are with the universe of what we would like, the easier it is for the universe to reply and kind of, you know, fulfill our order.
Thank you, Catherine. And we see a lot of coincidences. It's a very common type where we think of someone and then they call us, or we bump into them unexpectedly, or today in the digital age, they ping us on social media or send an email. So often we think of someone and then there they are. And this is a wonderful example of that type of experience, and perhaps even a little bit of anticipating the future or precognition. So, you know, did Doug feel Kat thinking about him and then know to call, or was he already going to call and Kat was kind of sensing into the future? We don't know. That's part of what we explore with these things. What are the possibilities of how such an experience might have unfolded? What caused that? So now I'm going to bring up also our colleague Anna Helene, and please introduce yourself just very briefly, Anna Helene, and then share your story.
Thank you. I'm Anna Helene Bert from the Netherlands, and I'm a consultant and a keynote speaker. So my story is about my work. I was preparing a presentation for the Academy of Management for a group of managers, but 200 miles away from my home on the other side of the country. And preparing my briefcase, suddenly a business card falls out. And I read it. I read the name and I say, wow, this is the name of one of the participants list on this evening. And I got it 6 years before. And then I get my other bag, I always have two. From my second briefcase, another business card falls out. And it's another participant's name of the list. So I'm so surprised. I drive there, and once arrived, there is a dinner before my presentation with a table seating. And guess where I am placed? Yes, in between the two people of the business cards. Very surprising. And one of them says to me, I have a problem and I think you can help me with it. And indeed, from that moment on, I worked for him 2 years as a consultant. So this was an announcement of something that had a big impact on me for a longer term. That's my story.
Thank you, Anna Helene. And I think that story is also a good example of how unlikely events can unfold and somehow they begin to become very meaningful. So a series of seemingly random things, of business cards falling out. They were kind of, oh, it's just a coincidence because those are people I'll see tonight. How interesting that their old business cards fall out of your bags. But then, even more meaningful, you get placed between them specifically at a dinner. They're your two dinner companions. And then even more meaningful than that, one of them becomes someone that you work for 2 years. So it's this unfolding of a series of things that you think, what does this mean? Where's this going? And in your story, so quickly it leads to something that was quite significant for you.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And now we have a third member of our board named David Strabela, and he has sent us his story as a recording because he is engaged today in his doctoral program studying Carl Jung in California at Pacifica. So this is our story from David Strabela.
Hi, everyone. This is David Strabela, director of the documentary film, What is Synchronicity? Here to tell you one of the many ways that synchronicity snuck into the movie script. Near the start of filming, I traveled to the Institute of Noetic Sciences in California to interview scientist Dean Radin. He soon told me that one of his colleagues, Robert McDowell, had an experience that morning I may want to film. During his daily meditation, McDowell simply wondered if there had ever been a documentary on synchronicity. He knew nothing of my documentary until minutes later when he read an email from Radin inviting him to be part of the filming if he had a story to share. After I interviewed McDowell, I thought, when the unexpected expects you, it may be synchronicity.
And our thanks to David, who recorded that story for us. And that's another one of those stories that makes us wonder about precognitive abilities, because their colleague was just meditating and thought, has anyone made a documentary of synchronicity? And David was coming on site to their workplace that day to make his documentary on synchronicity. So the answer to that imagined question was immediately answered with a yes, which is almost a serendipity, finding an answer to something in an unexpected way. And not only that, but that person was then interviewed for the documentary. Yeah, so David's last name is Strabela with all A's. All right, so now we are going to turn it over and let me add some pins to our colleagues, Lisa Buxbaum and Bernard Beitman, to talk a little bit more about our organization and meaningful coincidences.
Thank you, Juliet, and thanks for all that you do to keep the Coincidence Project so vibrant and exciting and meaningful. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. It's so wonderful to see all your smiling faces and glad you're here to join us. Today, it is my great pleasure to share Bernard Beitman with you. My name is Lisa Honig Buxbaum, and I'm the CEO and founder of Soaring Words, and I'm proud to be a member of the board of directors of the Coincidence Project. It's my great pleasure to introduce you to the founder of the Coincidence Project, psychiatrist Bernard Beitman. Bernie is the reason that we're all gathered here today. Bernie went to Swarthmore College, Yale Medical School, and did his psychiatric residency at Stanford. He was the chair of the psychiatry of the University of Missouri at Columbia Medical School for 17 years. He's the author of Connecting with Coincidence, which was published in 2016, and his latest book, Meaningful Coincidences, has been featured in the Wall Street Journal and LA Times and numerous leading podcasts. These both books serve as a personal guide to using synchronicities and serendipities, as well as an introduction to the new discipline of coincidence studies. Please join me in welcoming Bernie. So Bernie, let's get it started. My first question is, what is the Coincidence Project and why did you start it?
Juliet has told you what we do. The Coincidence Project is a bunch of people gathered together to project the idea of meaningful coincidences, synchronicity and serendipity out into world consciousness. And when we talk about world consciousness, I'd ask you to keep in mind the idea of our mental atmosphere, the psychosphere. And the psychosphere is a shared way in which we communicate with each other and can be a way of explaining some of the coincidences we just heard, but particularly Kat's coincidence and David Strabela's coincidence. Anna Helene's is more fun to try to guess around. It suggests that daily life can have like tarot card elements where random events seem to predict the future. We're trying to figure out how that works. And the psychosphere is one way to start thinking about them, the way I'm suggesting. But the main idea is that we are encouraging you to tell each other coincidence stories. We want you to be able to become more aware, as you are becoming part of this program today, of your own coincidence stories by hearing other people's coincidence stories. And hopefully you will go out to tell your friends, as Kat Windsor does all the time. It's one of her little games that I love hearing her play. Hey, what's your latest coincidence, says Kat to her friends, and she has lots of them. And we ask you to do that with your friends. And it's a little bit like sitting around in a dream circle, but telling each other the dreams of everyday life. So Coincidence Project is intended to project the idea of coincidences, meaningful coincidences, into the psychosphere, into the mind of humanity. Why did I found the Coincidence Project? Well, I don't know if it found me or I found it, but it's serving a need. Many of you are here because you didn't know that what you were experiencing with meaningful coincidences was a common event. When the weird coincidences of everyday life point to the mysterious hiding in plain sight. The mysterious hiding in plain sight. Right in front of us are mysterious events that are suggesting something about the way reality works and improving our capacity to move through reality, as the three stories we just heard. So I've done it because I wanted people to not feel that they're alone. Remember, I'm a psychiatrist. I like to help people connect and feel better about themselves. And meaningful coincidences are very much something that makes people feel alone. And I think that's true of some of you. And now you're not alone. You experience them with other people and share them with others.
Thanks, Bernie. Can you please tell us one of your life-changing serendipity stories?
Thanks, Lisa. We're here because of a dog named Snapper. When I was 8 or 9, I came home from elementary school in Shaker Heights, Ohio, and Snapper was my dog. I really needed that puppy. My father brought him home from a farm, and he wasn't home. He didn't come out to say hi. So I said, "Hey, Ma, where's Snapper?" And she said, "Go to the police station. Maybe they know." Now, I've wondered for years and asked people, why did she say that? And there's all kinds of speculation, but she said it. So I got back on my bike and rode back to the elementary school because the police station was across this big road, and crossed the big road and parked my bike at the bottom of the stairs and climbed up some stairs and then a little sidewalk and up some more stairs and walked into past this huge door. I remember I'm 8 or 9, and then walked to this desk, and this big desk with a big policeman sitting behind it. And I said, "Have you seen my dog?" And I still cry when he said, "No, sorry, son, we haven't seen your dog." And I started crying, as I'm starting to do now, and the tears started coming down my face, and I got back on my bike, and instead of going across the big road, I just wasn't thinking and went along the sidewalk, and I looked through my tears up ahead, and there was a dog coming towards me, a dog that walked the way Snapper walks. Was that Snapper? It was Snapper, and he jumped up on my leg, and he wasn't that enthusiastic. because he seemed to be saying, "What took you so long? Where have you been?" And we went home. That was life-changing for me because I needed Snapper. I needed to have a friend. We were best buddies, and we remained best buddies for many years afterwards. So I remember Snapper, and that's why we're here. He got me going into recognizing that weird things happen that are really wonderful.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that story. Can you please highlight some of the key ideas in your new book, Meaningful Coincidences?
So the key ideas of that book are intended to increase each person who reads its understanding of meaningful coincidence. It serves as both a popular book, but also as a textbook. And many of the key ideas in there have to do with what I'll describe in a little bit, defining the basic elements of meaningful coincidences, the 4 meaningful coincidences. What's the anatomy of a coincidence? Probability is a key part of it, but also if you look at meaningful coincidences like serendipity, synchronicity, they're composed of mind and object. And so there are only 2 elements to a meaningful coincidence. The idea of a mental event connecting with an environmental event are the 2 main elements of a meaningful coincidence. And I also talk about the types of meaningful coincidences and mention that it's important to recognize that not all of them are so wonderful. Sometimes they're great at the beginning, and sometimes they're not so great at the end or later. And sometimes they are bad at the beginning and really wonderful at the end. And this is what the book looks like. It goes on with trying to many different explanations for coincidences, as well as types of coinciders, people who have various ways of experiencing coincidences. And one key part is toward the end is a description of the psychosphere and our mental atmosphere, as well as the collective human organism, which I hope you get a look at, because as Juliet mentioned, we've got to do something about what humanity is doing in destroying our environment and destroying our nest and committing a slow suicide. Now that we've gotten to this, I want to mention how it is that the Coincidence Project got going. Juliet did not mention herself. And you can see how wonderful Juliet is, how clearly she thinks, how much she knows about the subject, and how we met in a nice coincidental way. I did something weird. I accepted an invitation to participate in an improv presentation where we each had 5 groups had to put together improv over a week to present in one of the places downtown here in Charlottesville. And one of the people putting that improv thing together was Juliet. And after I did the improv thing, Juliet and I met and became friends and kept contact for 3 or 4 years afterwards. And then one day we were having dinner. I said, Juliet, do you think you might want to help me with these coincidence things? I don't know. I need some help, because I was coming up with all these ideas. And Juliet just happened to have some time on her hands. And she did, and she is, and she's going to. And without Juliet, this thing wouldn't have happened. So Snapper and Juliet are key parts of this thing happening. Now, in the time remaining, I'll describe what's on this slide. It's important to make some distinctions, I think, among meaningful coincidences. Some people ask me why I call them meaningful coincidences, just coincidences, because there are different types. And I talk with people who don't like categories. I'm a diagnostician, not a really strong one, but I like categories. And the beginning of any new science includes having categories. So here are some basic categories described in my book, Meaningful Coincidences. Synchronicity usually involves spiritual, psychological, and or interpersonal development, like helping to connect two people through a shared experience. Serendipity, these happy accidents, spelled incorrectly, involve finding something valuable in an unexpected or unusual way. And one of the paradigmatic examples of that is the discovery of penicillin. Alexander Fleming in 1921 had a runny nose. He was a bacteriologist in London. He had a runny nose, and one of the drops from his nose fell on a petri dish that had a bunch of bacteria on it. And he noticed that the bacteria where that drop fell died. So he discovered that it's possible to break the cell walls of bacteria. And that might be a way an antibiotic might work. The story goes on and is one of the most incredible synchronicity serendipity stories, to go from that cold that Alexander had to mass production of penicillin and for World War II, to help stop the major infections that were killing soldiers much more than gunfire was. Seriality is less well known, but not uncommon, involves strings of things like repeated images of monkeys. And simulpathity is a new name for what was telepathy, feeling the pain of a loved one at a distance. For example, I was choking, and 3,000 miles away, my father was dying, bleeding into his own throat, choking. And I found lots of data, lots of evidence that suggest people on this call, as well as many others, also experience simulpathity. So, Lisa?
Great. So it seems like you defined the major terms that we use. And do you want to discuss why they're valuable today and in our futures?
Well, thanks, Lisa. We're going to hear stories from each other. And that list shows you some of the reason why we do these coincidence analyses. They're very helpful. And how are they helpful? Perhaps one of the most common uses of meaningful coincidences is they help people feel they are on the right path. They are doing what they need to be doing. They're confirmations that I am where I need to be. And I bet many of you use them in that way. They help show how connected we are, as I saw how connected I am with my father and with my dog. And so how many of you are connected to each other and don't know how deeply you are, and meaningful coincidences help in that way. They also help you been able to find things you need. That serendipity is the term we tend to use for that. That is, you can find people who can get you jobs, give you information you need, find out what you need to know about other people and each other, as well as making discoveries about how reality works. If you look at Nobel Prize winners' discussions about how they found their stuff, they give you a big I did it in a laboratory in a controlled way, but a lot of them, if you really ask them, they say, yeah, it was accidental, it was happy accidents. So major discoveries can be made by serendipity. One of the other key uses for meaningful coincidences is figuring out how reality works. And that's what human beings have been doing for many, many years. And my major task these days is to try to be able to convince people to use synchronicity to help mitigate the environmental destruction we are doing now. And one of the clues that I may have one of the openings I may have for this is that I am beginning to arrange the possibility of teaching physicians through the integrative medicine program at the University of Arizona in Tucson how to use meaningful coincidences as part of their practice, because the practice of medicine needs to be growing spiritually, and synchronicity awareness is one way to do that.
Thank you. So thank you, Bernie, for your leadership. And now back to you, Juliet.
Okay. Thank you. Just checking in with our chairs here. So the next thing that we're going to do together is go into breakout groups and you'll be with either 2 or 3 partners. We have a slightly uneven number for dividing by 4, and the recording will be paused. Anything you share in the breakout is private, and you can share whatever you're comfortable sharing with your partners. You can pass if you don't want to share and you just want to listen. But we have a few different things that we want to propose you might share in your breakout group. So our biggest prompt that we hope many of you will do is share one of your own coincidence stories. And this can be hopefully one of your own stories. And if you get a little stumped, but you think of a great story that a friend or family member has shared with you, you might share a story you heard from someone else. And if you get really stumped and you don't have a story that comes to mind, you might just answer to your group, what brought you here today? Or what is your relationship to coincidence and synchronicity? So you can choose from those, and we will post those again in the chat. So you won't have the slides in your breakout group, but you will have it in the chat. And can we advance to the next slide also, Kat?
Just a minute. Yeah.
So we would like each person to spend no more than 3 minutes initially sharing their story. We will post a banner that you'll see on your screen. So after 3 minutes have passed, when we get to the 4th minute, we'll say, please move to the next speaker. And each 3 minutes, you'll see a banner. It says, please move to the next speaker. We invite our experienced Coincidence Cafe members who have a star before their names, and our board members who also have, most of them renamed themselves to put board member after their name as well. We invite that person in each group to help guide the group and make sure that we do wrap up the speaker after 3 minutes and move on to the next person. So after everybody's had a chance to share their story, at the end, we invite you to maybe do a quick second round where you might reflect on your story and say, how surprising was that to you, that experience, on a scale of 1 to 10? And then you might think about, what was its value? Did something come about because of this coincidence? Is there a particular aspect of its meaning that has occurred to you before or even just now? And then we're going to explore a lot more about analyzing a few of the stories from people that might volunteer to do so after we return from the breakouts. So you'll have 20 minutes in your breakouts. At the end of 20 minutes, you'll get an extra 60-second countdown. So we hope that that 60 seconds at the tail end will allow the speaker, whoever's speaking at that time, to kind of wrap up. And we hope you have a good time in your breakout room. Let's see.
Let me just, Juliet, just
Sure.
I want to just make super clear so everyone knows what you're going to do. You're going to be in a small group. You each have 3 minutes to share a coincidence story that you've experienced yourself. And if you don't have one, another one maybe that you've heard that impressed you, or just why are you here? What are you interested in, right? So then make sure you kind of follow the banners, like stop talking after your 3 minutes so the other person can start talking. Everyone has equal time. And then at the end, we're going to send you a banner, which is, reflect what you just heard. What does it mean? Just kind of to integrate it, right? Okay, just wanted to make sure it's super clear. And we're ready to go. 20 minutes, 21 minutes, Nancy.
Yeah, 20 minutes in the breakout, and then an additional 60-second countdown will pop up so that you have a chance to wrap up. And we'll see you on the other side. We'll be pausing the recording. So welcome back from the breakouts. We're going to invite up our colleague and board member, Jessica Price-Jones, to help us chat about how we might make a little more meaning and do a little more interpretation of some of our stories. So Jess, I'm going to put a spotlight on you in just a moment, as soon as I pull you up, so that everybody can see you and be able to easily follow. All right. Welcome to the stage, Jessica.
Do call me Jess. Everybody
Yes.
calls me Jess.
Okay.
So we had a great session in our.
Make sure everyone else is on mute, please.
I have just had a message saying my bandwidth is low, which
Yes. Oh no. Yes.
You turn your video camera off. You might be
I'm going to put a message in chat.
It feels generally that there is some, I have
No, we're getting whoever's speaking just now, it's only chopped up. Hey, Chris Mackey, do you want to hop up here and help us reflect on some stories? Come off mute, Chris.
Sorry about that. Yes, there's a wonderful story from someone in our group in terms of the notion of connection, well, sad in a way, but waking up at 2:30 in the morning, which is not like a usual thing, and then later on getting the message that her grandfather had died. But that notion of a connection at that point, which is really quite mysterious, but a number of people have reported experiences like that. So it makes you wonder what kind of connections there can be. I suppose that relates to Bernie's theme of simulpathity. And there was another wonderful story in our group of from Diego about having had this experience out in the desert of seeing a blue mosque, which later on related to his career and study path of getting a Fulbright scholarship, and then finding himself in, I think it was Abu Dhabi, and then encountering another blue mosque, which was on the path of his studies that also led to this feeling that things were meant to be, like an unfolding in one's life that way. And another thing that came up was also with Leah, thinking of her daughter, and then her daughter would ring just at that time soon after or contact her, which is another frequent example of synchronicity that comes up. But people enjoyed telling their stories of synchronicity as well, not always having shared them as fully as even in our brief breakout groups just then.
Thanks, Chris.
So, Kat, do you want to bring back up the story about reflecting a bit?
The slide, okay.
The slide, yeah, the slide that we had up on reflection.
Okay, the sound quality is better again. I don't have the interruptions anymore from everyone, so good.
Yeah, I went through and put people on mute that weren't yet on mute.
Can you, for some reason it says your screen sharing is paused. Juliet, could you share the screen, the slide?
Yeah, let me bring it up to the correct view first.
I don't know why that is. Basically what we would
While
like.
I do that, will you put a spotlight on you and I?
Yeah. Spotlighting you, Juliet. Let me spotlight myself.
Yes, please. All right, so a couple of the things we wanted to think about were the element of surprise. Sometimes you think, oh, I expected this to happen. Like Jess just now, who was meant to do this bit, but said she anticipated she might have connection difficulties. She even rented a hotel room to try to prevent it, and yet she's having those connection difficulties in the hotel room. So she's maybe surprised, but not too surprised, because she somehow had a presentiment, a feeling that this would happen. And other things are, completely shocking, come out of nowhere, or improbable, like the story of seeing the blue mosque in the desert, perhaps, that was just shared, might have seemed very improbable at the time and became quite meaningful. And then another element that can help us begin to reflect on our stories are the value. What was the impact or outcome? Was something new revealed to you? Did it help you deepen a bond or build a new relationship? illuminating invisible threads that connect you to others, maybe like some of the coincidences arising in our groups have done. So, Kat, since you're up, I'll ask you to reflect a little bit on your story that you shared earlier about anticipating or thinking of a client that you'd like, and then as soon as you returned to cell phone range, that client phoned and said they'd like to work with you too. What was your level of surprise?
Oh, I was just, by the way, I didn't figure out how to spotlight myself with the slide up. But anyway, my level of surprise, it was like jaw drop. Like, I can't believe that Doug just called me. It was just like what I always experience with coincidences and synchronicities is this incredible sense of delight and surprise and sensing that we're not alone, we're all connected, and the universe is always somehow supporting us.
Wonderful. And then tell us a little bit about its value. What was revealed to you, or how did you feel like? Because this is not the only kind of experience you've had like this. So for you, perhaps part of the value might be in how it connects to other coincidence experiences you've had, not just to the story itself, but in the context of your life. What does this story mean or reveal to you?
It reveals that when we are like open-hearted, like when like I feel when I'm driving over a mountain pass in high altitude in the Rockies, right? I feel like this. And when we are very clear, when we're in this open state, we're very clear of what we want or what we desire. It's just the universe has an easier time to collaborate and co-create with us. So confirm to me that being in nature is always good for these things to happen, and that we relax and lean back and we don't have to work so hard. We can just kind of trust instead of control everything.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Well, Lisa sent me a message that she would like to join us and add a little bit from her group. And I'll invite our facilitators, our cafe regulars or board members, perhaps to help take the lead here. And if there's something you'd like to reflect on, let me know. You can send me a chat or raise your hand. Lisa.
Our group was very much how it is every month when we meet with this coincidence project. Ciara was in Dublin, Ireland, and Jan was in Washington State, and I'm here in Miami Beach. So we're just coming in all up from around the world and total connection. So Ciara shared a really important story when she was going off to university. She and her dad went from a very small rural place to the big city. And when they got there were no accommodations. And the woman said, "I'm sorry, there haven't been accommodations for weeks, but I'll make one call." And she called this person who said, "No, I told you a couple of days ago, there's no accommodations, but what's the person's name?" And that was a curious thing for her to ask, because what would that matter? And the woman said her name was Ciara and said her last name. And the woman on the phone, who didn't have a room 30 seconds ago, said, "That's my daughter's name. I'll make an accommodation." And that's been a lifelong friendship of the two Ciaras. And that incident really showed her that there's the rational world, but there's also the power of the invisible world that's always there to support us. The second story from Jan happened when she was 28, and now she's 63, on the verge of retiring from a very successful career. She was living paycheck to paycheck, and a coworker asked her to go out for drinks one evening, and the coworker was driving her Mercedes-Benz, and she was on a cell phone call. So Jan was kind of zoning out a little, looking out the window, and she got two distinct messages. The first one was, she started feeling spinning and tumbling. And she said to herself, "Just calm down, just calm down." But immediately the second voice said to her, "You're supposed to listen to your intuition." So even though it was really uncomfortable with this colleague, she said, I need you to just get off the next exit. I need to go home right now." And the person driving the car was cursing under her breath, really mad, but she drove her back to her car. That was over the weekend, Friday. That Monday morning, when Jan came into work, two of her colleagues said, "Did you hear what happened to Patty, the woman driving the car? She was in a terrible car accident. It was totaled. and she ended up being thrown from the car, lying in the fast lane, and she's in the trauma hospital, at which point Jan dropped the things she was carrying. So we talked about the fact that this was part of a series that she had just recently read, the book Creative Visualizations, and that had led her to really be responsive and listen to the second message. And then we spent the next part of our discussion just talking about how these encounters are part of a much larger plan. And when we're open to being open and relaxed, we can get these messages and they can guide us along our way. So that was our group, and I'm glad to be able to share it with you.
Thank you, Lisa. So we had a couple of things in the chat come up. Lexi, are you willing to share your story with us?
Oh yeah, I just put it in the chat, but my best friend Hannah passed 2 years ago today, so I think that's coincidental in itself. But I dreamed of her passing in the months leading up to her death and the days before her death, and she passed on her 21st birthday. And Larry coincidentally has a daughter named Hannah, and while I was telling that story, his daughter called him, and she is 21. So, and my friend Hannah passed on her 21st birthday. So
Wow.
very strange.
Beautiful, and not just a coincidence of the past, but something happened in the moment to deepen it. Yeah, thank you, Lexi. We find that a lot in our coincidence cafes as we share these stories. Somehow the past and the present, we begin to overlay them, and new coincidences occur that deepen. We've got somebody on that's come off mute that might need to mute themselves again. I'm going to invite Eon to come up and share as well. And if you're one of anybody here, if you'd like to share your story, please post it in the chat so that I know, and I'll do my best. For the next 7 minutes or so, we're going to continue to do these reflections on making meaning and sharing our stories. Please mute if you're not a speaker on stage. Please mute.
Yeah, I think that's Diane. You're Hi, I'm John. I was in a group with Mark. We get Diane muted. Diane Adams. Great, thank you so much. I was on a group with Mark Dolomore and Brooke and Chelsea, and right when Mark started speaking, I felt all of us kind of nodding our heads. It turned out all four of us are all super coinciders, as you would call us, Juliet. We're all used to having many synchronicities.
We have super encounterers. Was a term coined by Sandra Erdelich, super encounterers. I find that hard to say, so I actually prefer high frequency coincider, or HFC. You can add that to your name if you feel like it. Julian Gresser, HFC, high frequency coincider. You can use it in your email signature. People say, what is that? HFC.
I'm in awe of the
high frequency. We were all high frequency coinciders, and all four of us had this deep spiritual connection to synchronicity, feeling, that it happens when you're in the flow. We all had a connection with sacred geometry, and actually Mark was talking about a mathematical arts and divination way that he has been tracking and mapping his synchronicities. So it was there was a lot of hits. Like, it was interesting how we were placed. I also noticed that both Brooke and Chelsea had the same hat on, and kind of both talked about working with dogs, and it was just really interesting to see how here in this group, we just get grouped together to, I felt a lot of confirmations drop in for each of us, and just remembering how to stay in the flow. We talked about asking the right questions, also speed up synchronicity, or can create synchronicity when you get really quiet and you learn to just ask questions to the universe and to be in that feeling state of the deep pondering, like when you're feeling, when you attach your emotions to the question and that desire, then the synchronicities sped up. So that was what we were sharing. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to invite Arlene to join us. Everyone, please make sure you stay on mute. We're getting a lot of background noise.
Hi, everyone. I just unmuted. Can you hear me? I see Diane's microphone is not muted.
Yeah, Diane, we have a lot of background noise on your line, so we need your computer to stay on mute unless you're speaking.
Is that all good?
Welcome. Hi, Arlene.
Hi. I just have to say, I thought this was a lecture I signed up for, so this has just been incredible. I found out 20 minutes in the email beforehand that we were to share a story. So, you know, I think we all remember when we would say, what a coincidence, and dismiss it. And then about 20 years ago or so, like the universe just exploded on me. And it was because I got extremely specific about one thing. My favorite aunt died in the winter in 1989. And after everyone left her gravesite, even though I believed in the afterlife, you know, I believe in God and all of that, I was just like, where does all the love go? Because when you're so cracked open, you focus on the physical and her beautiful hands that used to hug us and all of that. So after that, most of my synchronicity stories are surrounding like grief and passing, and it's helped so many people in you know, my family and friends who aren't believers, and they would call me and tell their stories. But so the story that happened was, my beautiful aunt was Canadian like myself, but she married and moved to Maryland. But when she was little, apparently she had this autograph book. So she would be 100 this year, and this autograph book is 90 years old. And so I moved to South Carolina, and then I ended up moving back to Canada in 2000. So somehow I was supposed to find this autograph book on my mother's bookcase of this autograph book that is so old. And the entries are like little kids' limericks, right? Mostly from 1930 to 1935. But in it, when I read this, like, you know how everything just stops and time slows down? It was dated January 5th, 1933. Dear daughter, I wish you health, I wish you wealth, I wish you gold in store. I wish you heaven when you die. What could I wish you more? My grandfather's writing a poem to a 10-year-old about this. My aunt passed on January 5th, 1989. So the fact that this little poem from my grandfather that was penned January 5th, and she died on January 5th. I just knew it was like a little gift box from the ancestors that I was supposed to find to say, we survived the grave, notice the synchronicities, and help other people with healing. So, I mean, I have written down so many pop culture stories, so many stories of my friends, and a lot when my animals pass away, that it's like they call them God winks, right? Where the universe is just exploding. And so hopefully one day I'll get them all together in a book, because they just keep happening. I don't know if you all are football fans, but Damar Hamlin, if you saw that whole thing unfold, there was just so many things from God exploding about how we should pay attention to these synchronicities for healing. So thanks for listening.
Thank you, Arlene. That's wonderful. I appreciate your share. And I'm going to bring Chris Mackey up to help us. And before I turn it to you, Chris, you know, some people, we think about the causes, the force that's enabling, perhaps creating, perhaps enabling or empowering, or seeding, and we see what sprouts. Who knows? So some people might describe that as a deity, depending on their faith system. They might use the word God, the big G or little g, or they might have some other sense of the divine. Some people might say the universe in a more neutral way. It's not linked to a particular faith system. Other people might say it's the laws of probability of very large numbers. And, 8 billion people on the planet, many things are happening. Some of them might be cool and interesting and interconnected. most of us that study coincidences and synchronicity would say these probabilities are so tiny when you think about the timing of the event, not just the unlikeliness, but a particular moment in time. Like you turn your head, and this happens to me all the time. I have something that Dr. Beitman will call human GPS, which is somehow navigating myself in space and time into running into people in the most unlikely ways all over the world. I'll run into acquaintances or friends in just such deeply unexpected ways and places. And sometimes I'll want to see someone and then I find them. So it's like I somehow have an inner navigation system to come across people that I'm connected to. And there's like a split second when the crowd parts and I see someone and I'm in, the Czech Republic, and it's someone I would never expect to see from the US in a crowd in Prague. And if the crowd hadn't parted in that split second, I never would have known that my friend was there. And so it's not just the improbability of being in another place on the planet in the same day. It's the same place in a very busy city, the same place within a single crowd, the same place where the crowd parts and I can see them in a line of sight. If anything prevented that line of sight, there would have been no coincidence. So the unlikelihood of that begins to increase, less and less and less probable that it might occur. And some coincidences are much deeper than that in their levels of improbability. So those that look at probability, perhaps they don't want to see more, is maybe my suspicion, but that's just my personal view. And then, how else is it that the world is set up? Are there laws like gravity? Are there scientific principles of quantum entanglement? I know Chris Mackey thinks a lot about propinquity, and maybe you could even tell the group what define that for them as we move forward here. And maybe there are principles we don't yet fully apprehend that are at play, that are helping to link all of this. But it is beautiful to explore and investigate this and to think about our sense of causation or meaningfulness of the world in which we live. I think at the very minimum, we can say these are meaningful experiences, and to be alive is to be open to deeply meaningful, moving experiences. Often a coincidence might be a window of opportunity. And so if we're able to act, it can go deeper and deeper. It may unfold into something quite remarkable. Like Anna Helene's story at the beginning of the business card of a colleague from 6 years ago fell out of her briefcase. Then she goes to an event that night. She's seated next to that person on a pre-created dinner plan. She's seated right next to the person whose card fell out after 6 years of carrying it around. Not only that, they struck up a conversation and the person wanted to work with her and became someone she worked for 2 years. So without that opportunity to maybe go deeper in the conversation because of the coincidence, maybe she would have missed that chance to work with the person. So the coincidences often seem to be inviting us to act or move or respond. And the more we notice them, the more we have an opportunity to make that response or to take that action. So I also wanted to call attention to what Arlene said, that she's been writing them down. We invite all of you to write your coincidences down in journals. It helps to tell our stories. We refresh them and deepen our memory and our thought about them by sharing them with others. And then on our website, as Chris will discuss, we have a place that you can share your stories with others. So Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you now. And in just a moment, we'll share the screen, and we've got a couple of slides here for letting people know what comes next.
Thank you very much, Juliet. So as many people's stories come across, many experiences of synchronicity can be very affirming, and especially sharing it with other people. And also many stories have a theme of connection, which and talking about it can strengthen that sense of connection, which helps our well-being. So I have a slide coming up talking about ways that people can go on from this meeting today to, again, be involved further in our group. And this will strengthen the connections that we've made today through our launch party. Wonderful to see so many people here, and many people, including in the breakout groups and the subsequent discussion. You'll feel that, well, actually, there's something joyous about it, but also affirming, mutually supportive even, to be able to talk about these stories and highlight things that we've experienced. But we have a seminar series coming up that we'd encourage as many of you to attend as you can. So the next one will be on March the 14th. Lisa Buxbaum and I will be talking about synchronicity, spirituality, and thriving. Then Bernie Beitman We'll be talking in April about how to cultivate synchronicities. If it helps our well-being, how do we experience more of it? Then David Strabler on May the 6th will lead a panel on shades of coincidence meaning. Then in June, Eon Karras will present on synchronicity and your soul mission. In July, Jess will be presenting on intuition at work. And then in August, Juliet will be presenting on nature, coincidences and compassion. So please also connect with our website. There's a previous slide to this one actually that might have our website, or someone might put that in chat at the moment. Oh, here we go. One of the main things is keep on sharing your stories, because it is affirming to other people. And as Bernie said, people can feel sometimes alone with these experiences. As a psychologist, I know that sometimes people almost feel crazy with those experiences as well. Now, I'm not sure what's happened to my Zoom connection there.
Chris, we can see the slide. We can see you.
Okay, good. You can see the slide. You can see me. For some reason, I've lost it, but you can look at the different kind of things there. Share your stories with other people, but also on the website at thecoincidenceproject.net. So with that, the more sharing of stories, it keeps this feeling continuing on. And there's a weird coincidence survey that you'll be able to access through that website. And the idea is to keep it going, keep the different, the contacts that we have going, and telling stories is a key aspect of that. And certainly attending the seminar series coming up as well. For some reason, I've lost the screen. If anyone else wants to mention, Kat or Juliet, anything else I've missed there, but ways of keeping actively involved in our group that will strengthen the group and keep the feeling going that's come up today. So thank you all for being here today with that.
Yeah, so I think, the website, coincidenceproject.net. Juliet, are you going to be able to put the links into the chat?
Yeah.
Okay, so Juliet will be posting the links in the chat. So the website, it has all these events, and you can make sure you're on our newsletter, because we will then be just sending you the upcoming events. And we're so excited about the program we're putting together. An easy way to stay involved is also to just join our coincidence cafes. Once a month, we come together similar to this. And it's been just so interesting to see what themes show up. Oh, the birds. I mean, it's like in those cafes, since joining those cafes, it's like, oh my gosh, the birds, it's a thing. Like everybody seems to have bird stories, especially related to wisdom or big transformations, or to death also. Messengers from the departed. They're like in the twilight zone somewhere, the in-between zone. Or there is just, anyway, so you get to learn a lot of these themes, and suddenly your understanding of reality. It just like, wow, there's so much more than what we are consciously aware of. It helps us raise our coincidence awareness.
Yep, and thank you, Kat. Gonna add a pin here. We gotta remove the spotlight.
Yeah, let's see
There we
everybody's
go.
faces. So you're
Yes.
all, there's no coincidence that you're right here, right now. We're all connected. We're all on some level very kindred spirits.
And we wanted to invite you quickly to think about, how does coincidence and synchronicity and serendipity feel to you in this moment, and create a gesture, express it in some way physically right now that we can see one another. What does coincidence and synchronicity and serendipity, what does it feel like to you?
Heart, I'm seeing hearts. I'm seeing, what am I seeing? Let's see it again. Openness, what's that about?
Yeah, connection, interconnection.
Yeah.
Something interesting from Kate. Kate's got a good one. Eric has a card. So if anybody wants to come off mute and just share in a word what this means to you. We might have a little talking over one another, but we can be a little chaotic here in the final minutes. Just share a word that's coming to mind about today's session or about the meaningfulness of coincidences.
I don't feel alone anymore with other people, the same, and not the same, but similar.
Thank you, Annie. That's part of why we created this project. We don't want anyone here to feel alone with this anymore. We are all having these wonderful experiences and these strange and crazy and weird and delightful and mysterious experiences. There's so much more common. We really want to help normalize that and help people explore them and take them into their workplaces and take them into their families and their societies. And, you know, it's going to take a little bit of time, right, that everybody to make this a little bit more of a common source of conversation, but we do hope to inspire that. Anyone else that wants to come off mute and share a thought? Yeah, Kate.
The evolution of human consciousness is so prevalent in this type of experience, and how we can, like you said, how it can become much more commonplace and understood as a evolving science. I think that is what is super exciting in this century and this era of the Aquarian age, with these amazing technologies that can bring us all together to share and evolve our consciousness. Super exciting. Thank you for hosting this.
Oh, thank you. It is our pleasure. And we put all the links in the chat, but to our website, thecoincidenceproject.net. And please post some of your stories to our story forum. And we review those and add a nice image to them. And then they get posted within a few days of you adding your stories.
Can I just ask everybody before you go, if there's any talk that you'd like us to give or any subject you'd like us to cover, could you please post it in chat? That would be wonderful, because then we can serve your needs, and that's what we'd love to do.
Yes, and I actually created an evaluation form that you can fill out and a place to put that. So if you could actually, everybody copy this link and take this quick evaluation. It's just two questions on how was today and 2 questions on what else might we do. We would love your input. Please, please, please click that link. And please give us your feedback. We really want to build this as a community, and we want to have events and topics suggested by all of you that then we find ways to cover in the future.
Juliet, could you post the link? I don't see the link.
Yes, I just posted it, but it might depend on the chat and where you are scrolling in it. But
great.
Post it again just now. Thank you so much, everyone, for being with us today. We'll continue to stay on for a few more minutes, but we have reached the end of our 90-minute time. We'll do this on the 3rd Saturday. For us, it's Saturday, at the same hour and a half as whatever time it is for you in your part of the world. We'll be here month after month, as well as the speaker series and other future events are coming as well. Everything will be on our website. There's a page called Participate, and that's where we want you to be with us. And we'll be posting about all of our events to come on the Participate page. And the page called Share is where we have our story forum, as well as the Weird Coincidence Survey, where we hope you'll share your experiences with us. And we're using the Weird Coincidence Survey. Thousands of people around the world have taken it. We'll be partnering with new researchers to kind of go deeper in that data in the coming year. So we want to advance the frontiers of knowledge. We want to illuminate all of this interconnectedness, these beautiful currents that connect and unify us. And we want to do so in order to help make a more sustainable world for all beings, and to help relieve our sense of isolation and aloneness with all of this. So we do hope today you've had some connection and had the opportunity to share in a way that's meaningful to you, and to listen and be present in a way that's meaningful to you. Lisa?
Thanks, everyone. Sending you love and strength. So exciting. See you next month. Mark your calendars.
March 18th. That's the next one.
Bye, everyone. See you next
Bye,
month.
everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. See you. Brilliant.
Thank you, everyone.
Much love.
Happy Synchronicity Saturday, everybody.
So these monthly seminars, are they going to be the Saturday mornings or as well? Same time slot?
Yeah.
Same time slot. 3rd Saturday of each month, same time slot as today.
Gotcha.
We call it the Coincidence Cafe, and you can sign up for the Coincidence Cafe. There's a link here in the chat, but you can also go to our website and go to participate. There's the link to register for the recurring Coincidence Cafe on our participate page.
She was asking about how to get to the seminars that Chris
Go to the
and
participate page on the website. We'll have everything about the seminars as well.
Thank you, team, for organizing and facilitating this.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks,
Michelle. May you all have great coincidences this week.
Thank you.
Bye, Michelle.
Bye-bye.
Have a good weekend.
Next is March 18th.
Yep.
That's the day before your birthday. I remember.
It is, Aurora. Last year it was on my birthday. It's such a nice way to spend my birthday, is with a Coincidence Cafe, to be with all of you. Thanks for remembering, Aurora.
And there's also someone who's going to have his birthday.
I'm also. Yep. Hey, I see Kirby raised his hand. Hi, Kirby.
Yeah. How you doing, Juliet?
I'm wonderful, thanks.
I have a question. What is the, who is it? And there's something that always pick a theme, and it picks a theme and it said, you know what? We're going to form a lot of patterns. And I always wanted to know, how does that work? You know what I mean? It's like for example, like I might have a theme of dolphins, and I'll see it for the whole week. And I always wanted to know who had a theme.
Yeah, I know. That's the big question, isn't it? How does this reality work? It seems to have these, that's part of those serial coincidences, repeated patterns. It could be one thing or a thing that leads to another. So it's a group of things that then repeat as a team, or one similar item like a dolphin. And who does pick the pattern? We want to know. You know, some people say it might be our through our soul agreement, you know, that we created some of the meaning and some of the symbolism when we were not in our bodies in this lifetime, from the soul that exists beyond this life. You know, others might see it as a source of a particular divinity, their own sense of the divine, or just the universe. Some see it as something to do with quantum entanglement and quantum possibilities, and how what we're learning about science might apply to macro systems, human systems, organism systems, ecosystems. Fractals, the patterns repeat at various scales, you know, that a brain cell looks just like a map of the cosmos. And a tree, the patterns of a tree look like the patterns of neurons in the brainstem. That we see things repeated over and over and over in our reality. And something, perhaps we're in a game. Perhaps we're in the matrix, and this has been designed, and maybe some of us are awakening to the matrix, so we can play with a thread rather than it being kind of random. We say, oh, dolphin, I like you. And so then we get a bunch of dolphins. So maybe we have some conscious control in some way of our own awakening to play with the nature of reality and to enhance our frequency or quality of experience with coincidences. There's a lot of theories. We really don't know. There's no definitive proof of one versus another right now, but it is certainly part of what motivates those of us doing this as our work to hang in there and really get close and comfortable with this topic and ask that question. You know, who made this up? This is quite remarkable and silly and wonderful.
Can I share something,
Julian?
Yeah, I got Ricardo and then Julian. So Ricardo next and then Julian.
Very quick. Carl Jung says that it's an acausal phenomenon. And Dr. Beitman, what is your opinion? Because I think it's causal at the end. In the profound, it's the cause of everything is the mind and the psychosphere and the interconnections. So by our eyes is acausal, but there's a cause, a profound cause we are not seeing.
Thank you, Ricardo.
Yeah. So Bernie, what's your feeling? Is there a causality, or is there always some cause and we're just not aware of the causes yet?
I don't know. I mean, that's part of the fun of this. And to think there's one cause is not something I think is true. If you think it's all God or the universe, that's what you think. So much of what we think is the explanation is what your favorite explanation is. And my favorite explanation is that you're doing it with the psychosphere, but that's not enough either. So there's all kinds of projections. Juliet, you got a nice list of them. Part of the fun of this is to gradually figure out how this works. And I've got a model for telepathy just as a start that uses the psychosphere and personal responsibility.
Yeah, Julian.
Yeah, Bernie and Juliet, I think it's a wonderful program, and I really think it's greatly to your credit, and I think it's really terrific. So what I'd like to ask you is, given the momentum you've built up over the last few years and the website, and I think you've very well articulated the vision, what are the present most critical challenges to take this whole enterprise to the next level in the most practical way, that if you could meet these challenges, it would be a really significant leap forward in the direction that you want to take this?
Well, thanks for that, Julian, because the biggest challenge is cash right now. When you get something like this going, you know this as well as I do, you got to have some money to make the thing work. So we need to be able to have money just to establish and continue the work that Juliet and website people and others are doing. That's just essential. Now, you may be also asking where we're going with this. The challenge is involving more researchers to be able to look at this project and see what we can research. And I've got an idea about looking at coincidence stories and looking for patterns in them by collecting a lot of stories. We got plenty of them. And also to link with other groups that are doing some of the same things that we are doing, because there are other groups that are doing something. For example, spirituality and mental health clinics are being established at Yale and have been established at Columbia University in New York.
Do you have a budget and a number that you're?
We're looking for the next year. We're looking for 100,000.
Okay, well, so we'll schedule. Perhaps I have ideas on all of this, so I'll schedule offline. But anyway, I'm really both moved and encouraged, and I think it's just terrific, Bernie. And really, congratulations, Julia. And I also think it's very well handled and very well. I mean, you've got so many interesting people from all over the world, and how you were able to do this so that people from Australia to France, not to mention Santa Barbara, all can get at the same time. I mean, it's really a considerable accomplishment, and to run it so well. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the compliment. Thanks to Juliet and Kat in particular for making this thing work so nicely today. And even the bugaboos were wonderful to have too. So Juliet and Kat, thank you very much for organizing this thing. And again, as usual, Chris Mackey, if he's still here, probably isn't. How do you get up that early? And Philip Mary even showed up for a little while, and these guys are in far out places, but I like Norway the best. I don't know, what can I tell you?
Yeah, we've got Philip.
Bernie,
Philip, you're still with us.
I'm still with you. There's a lot of things I could say. I was listening to what Julian you were saying. I don't know whether people know, but I did my PhD in synchronicity and leadership. And actually, Bernie, you probably don't know either, but maybe you do. I looked at the patterns of stories. And the question I asked for the people I interviewed was, what is it that facilitates synchronicity? So that's 200 pages of data, which then led me to my 9 keys of synchronicity, which I'm happy to share with people at any point, Juliet, if that might be useful. And I've just launched masterclass on what is it that facilitates synchronicity. So
well, I'm still
here, Bernie.
You're still
Right.
here, and you're out there doing the work, and I'm so pleased with that. And what I'd like to see your conclusions, at least from what you've done with that paper, because I haven't seen what
It's in the book,
facilitates.
Bernie. You've seen the book. It's the 9 Keys of Synchronicity is the book. All the conclusions are in there.
And the 9 keys are what you got out of the research.
The 9 keys come from 200 pages of data to answers to the question, what facilitates synchronicity? So
Well, good.
I'm very interested in stories, but I'm more interested in as well, how do we give people a structure that enables them to focus? And in my leadership coaching these days, I ask people which are the keys that are going to help, which are you stuck on, and which are the ones that are going to help you. So I've done all of that stuff.
Well, I'll be talking about the cultivating meaningful coincidences in April, and I'll go back to your book and look at it with more closely than I did before, because I didn't somehow that didn't connect with my mind what the 9 keys are.
I'm happy, Juliet, if you need, I'm always available. I'm happy to do a session on the 9 keys of synchronicity based on PhD research and where that comes from. So that's what I'm doing all the time these days.
Yeah. Hello, Philip.
For sure.
I like your book. I like your book, Philip, It's practical.
That was my focus. I work with big corporations. I work with United Nations. I work with banks, and they want to know, how can we use synchronicity and intuition to solve practical issues that the world has? And that's where I'm focused. And I'm literally just I'm going to Bali in 2 weeks' time with the United Nations, and I'm going to do synchronicity and intuition on what that means for the work the UN is doing in terms of how they work together with communities. So
important what you're doing, Philip. So important.
Thank you. We'll definitely follow up with you to get it scheduled and to help host, a joint program for you to do the 9 keys.
Okay.
Bernie, I have a question, Bernie.
I gotta go, folks. I gotta go now. It's 2
Well, thanks for showing up, Philip. I know it's a little bit of different time over there.
Not a problem at all. It's a great session, Bernie. Well done, Julia. I love it.
Thank you.
Bernie.
See you later, Philip.
Bernie.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Bernie, I have a question. Is it possible for us to align our conscious mind with a random machine which always crank out the synchronicity? Is it possible? Because to me, it's random and it's picking out stuff, and I just have to follow through. But is it possible that we could align our conscious mind with this random machine?
Yeah, that's what we're doing. Out of randomness comes order, and that's one of the contradictions we live with, that there's polarities all around us. And when you start believing that randomness can yield order, you've got the basic idea behind how this stuff happens.
I think we also have to challenge our assumptions about randomness as well. Physicists might argue that actually there is nothing random about this at all.
Agreed. Strongly agreed. What is random? Yeah. Show me you can prove what random is, but we got the word out there, but you're so right about that. That's Nancy. Let's keep challenging what we mean by randomness.
Yeah, and there does seem to be a deep connection with not just our minds, but perhaps also our hearts, our spirits, our emotion, the kind of totality of what we think of as ourself, that we can align it in ways that allow expansion or allow the unfolding or occurrence to increase of these kinds of interconnected events that we might call meaningful coincidences.
There was a movie called What the Bleep Do We Know that had some reported some evidence that people's intentions could influence the results of random number generators. So there could be a link between humans and machines. And Lynn McTaggart's done some interesting work in that area as well.
Yeah. Anna Elaine, did you have something to add?
Yes, you spoke about random, and we were in random breakout groups, but I was so excited when I saw my group. it was impossible. It was such a big coincidence because there was Carol, and she was in Spain, and I prepared a story to tell, and it was about her. So I was really so amazed. Yeah, incredible.
Far out and groovy, man. Far out and groovy. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and there was another small coincidence. Perhaps you didn't notice, Bernie, but you guessed that there would be 100 guests today. And the moment you started talking, you were interviewing, there were exactly 100 guests.
I didn't notice that.
Juliet?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I just had an epiphany with what Bernie just said. And it's a big, big subject, so I won't go into it, except to say just with a question, and then I'll make a comment. Bernie, can explain just a little bit more how the connection between the CSF enterprise and polarities, because the term polarity actually has an engineering implication, which I'll just mention after Bernie answers my question, which is profound and suggests a very interesting potential collaboration, which I'll develop separately. But Bernie, just if you would, in a sentence or two, help me understand even better the connection between the coincidence project and polarity.
The coincidences demonstrate that we live in a polarized world that also has continuum. So what human beings have difficulty recognizing is there is polarity and there is a connection between the poles. And the best example of that is thinking of something and then it happens. And it appears that our minds, our thoughts are separate from our environment, but that coincidence shows that we are linked.
Okay, that's very, very interesting. Just the head note, which we can explore much later. As some of you know, I'm dealing with a wireless juggernaut. Since I know, Bernie, one of your concerns with Juliet is the fate of the planet. And it turns out, I just learned from one of our collaborating engineers that there's a holy grail solution to blanketing the entire planet with this destructive technology, which is wireless. And that is the key reason it's damaging is polarity, polarization from an energetic waveform. And so I had the idea during the discussion, because we're going to organize really an international project to solve the problem polarization of these energy forms. And the idea was to engage those of this enterprise who are interested in solving critical problems using the insights from synchronicity. And what's so interesting is it turns out, as you just described in the work that you're doing, that, I don't know what the word is, understanding polarization is critical to the CSS enterprise. So it's highly synergistic with this technical collaborative innovation project that I'm in the process of.
Excellent. And to put it in yet the terms that might be in the direction you're talking about, we have to keep looking for how digital and analog are connected with each other, because right now they are a fundamental polarity in the world mind.
Yeah, okay. Well, so there's massive amounts of funding for this macro problem. There are lots of other areas of funding to help this coincidence project get $100,000. But this is a really interesting fit that we can elaborate in another time.
So we'll make a little get together, you and me.
Yeah.
Anyone else with a question or a comment? Thanks for those of you that have stayed on here a little past our 90 minutes.
I just wanted to say thanks. I won't be at the March meeting. I'll be on a cruise ship with my sister-in-law, but I wish you all well for your March meeting, and hopefully I'll catch you guys again in April.
And I hope you keep coming, because you got some good stories that unpack for the rest of it, you owl person,
no.
you.
Yeah, and I've had them pretty much my whole life too. I've got a long list written up, so I've been
Well, we welcome high frequency coinciders, which is what you are.
Yeah,
Thanks. Take
thanks,
care,
Athena.
everybody.
We'll look forward to seeing you again.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
I want to say bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
bye
so
everyone.
much.
Wonderful
Great meeting.
presentations. Congratulations.
Thanks,
Cool.
Miss Random. When I think of you, I'm going to think random.
Oh.
Non-random. I'm going to question random.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask Hazelton to give me an answer to that question.
Oh, yeah.
I have a couple of quick questions.
Yep.
I was, for some reason, I couldn't get in for a good while. So is this going to be available to us on replay?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
It'll be posted.
I'm sorry?
It'll be posted and we'll get it up on our website.
And
Okay,
I think we're going to send it out on the email, Julia, to everybody.
Yeah, we'll send it out to everybody who had registered for today, because we had more than 200 register. We had about 100 with us. So I'm pretty sure the other 100 will end up watching this in the replay.
Okay, wonderful. And also, second question is, since three of the four people in my group were from Charlottesville.
Wow.
Is there by any chance a little group that meets in Charlottesville now?
Are you in Charlottesville?
I'm in Charlottesville.
Well, I've tried to get one together, and I need somebody to help organize it. Do you know anybody?
Love to.
You know
I'd love
anybody
to
that
help.
might do that? Have anybody in particular named Jane or something?
Somebody named Jane McDonald would love to help you with that.
Okay, well, you have my email address. I'll put it in the chat if you don't.
Okay. Was it your email that sent out the notice?
It was the coincidence project at gmail.com, which is one of the emails that we share.
Okay. The coincidence project.
Yeah.
You can use this one too.
Okay.
Coincider. I'm putting it in there. Coincider at gmail.com.
Coincider@gmail.com.
Yeah. COINCIDER.
Okay.
At
Good.
gmail.com. Okay, Jane. Well, maybe we'll get this thing going again.
All right. Good. This was great. I loved it. Thank you.
Yeah, what we would like to see is that we have the virtual Coincidence Cafe once a month, but in areas where there's people interested in gathering, that we'd like to see Coincidence Cafe LA, Coincidence Cafe Barcelona, Coincidence Cafe London, Coincidence Cafe. Where are you, Ricardo?
Mexico.
I know, but where in Mexico?
Coincidence Cafe.
Mexico City.
Definitely Coincidence Cafe, Mexico City.
And Port Townsend, Washington.
Exactly. So please, if you're interested, do think about it. And we'll start to try to come up with a little bit of coaching that we do for someone that might like to organize this. So that we might have like a little organization or coaching meeting. Eventually, maybe we'll have a little training manual or video or something to help set up little Coincidence Cafe and then the location. We'd like this to proliferate and go viral. So Jane, we would love your help, but all of you that are here, we would love your help. We would invite it. Kirby, we know we've got a bunch of, we've got a small group of you already going in Miami and Coral Gables. So there's good potential for Coincidence Cafe Miami already. But anywhere that all of you are, we'd love to see this happen.
Cool.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Have a good weekend.
Thank you all. Until next time.
Next time.